Okay, so now we come to the last session. Winfried needs no introduction. It would be too long. So I give him the floor.
Good afternoon. And maybe some people say having a slot at 3 o'clock is a bad draw, like in the ARC you would have 23 or 24. But this is why we have, in a way, ensured that we have very fast horses who will help us to get out of the gate and win the race. I would like, in a way, probably give a brief overview, in a way, to set a little bit the scene for our speakers later who, in my perspective, offer really a world-class standard, in a way, if it comes to social media strategy. But I think it is really to really start with, to give an overview about building a successful media strategy. It is, first of all, a little explanation for those who are not as social media savvy. What is the category of social media? A little bit an overview of what opportunities we have, what the challenges are, and then introducing the panelists, and especially, in a way, giving you an example of world best practices when it comes to social media. Looking at social networking, I think it's here give a brief overview, and a lot of people categorize it practically in 6 categories if it comes to social media. One is the social networking side, which is, in a way, definitely, obviously, extremely en vogue. Then it is, for some people, in a way, it's with accessibility of news. It goes from bookmaking, not bookmaking is a classical bookmarking, not bookmaking. So that was a test. Then, if you look at blogs and microblogs, we have geolocations, we have collaborative projects, and content communities. And it has a variety of different applications. It goes from the simple like, dislike, etc. So I'm still a little bit concerned if you would, after the presentation, do the dislike for the introduction of myself. So we have not put this onto the platform. But it goes even in complex issues like Flicksters, where you can get movies recommended you like, looking at your profile and the ratings of other people. So I think it's a wide variety of activities, and if you see even those who provide offerings or contents, it is a vast universe. Giving a little bit of feedback about the development. If you look at 1990, we had a population of 5.2 billion people on Earth. Now we have 7.2. If you look at who was using the internet in 1990, we had 3 million people. Now, it's 2.8 billion people. If you look at the internet penetration, in a way, it was 0.6% in 1990, and now we have an internet penetration of 39%. So one can see that obviously this trajectory is very impressive. And I think even more, it will be accelerated, that a lot of people now have access to phones who are internet accessibility. And at the moment, we have 7 billion people with mobile phone subscription. Even you see like people in Hong Kong who on average have 6 devices. When you even discount this, you will see that around 4.5 billion people around the world having mobile phones. And this is 63% of the population. And if one sees, therefore, how, in a way, with the accessibility of the mobile phone and the accessibility of internet, it will become the most dominant information and communication channel people use. If one looks, for example, the behavior of people, which I think is very interesting, because if one looks at horse racing to be relevant, one has to be connected, how people behave, how they get information, how they process data, how they buy things. And it is interesting to see, there was a very interesting survey done in the US, and stating how long people have not a mobile phone at earshot. So you see 3 hours and more, 17%. So that are people who obviously, especially trapped in the room here. If you look at 2 to 3 hours, it's 9%. But when you see in a way that 25%, they don't recall any longer that they didn't have a phone at their ear. 24% has less than 30 minutes throughout the day. So one can see that phones become so part of daily life, and that therefore, if we as racing are not on these platforms, we will lose out in the connectivity. The social media penetration, if one looks at, which would be maybe interesting to give a perspective, if you look at the regions, in North America, for example, 54% of the people in North America are social media users. And even if you look at Western Europe, it's 44%, Oceania 44%, you can see the dominance. And if you would see the same statistics in 5 years, you can, in a way, definitely see a further increase. To give another perspective, every year, 135 million users were added in 2013. So it is, in a way, the main way how people communicate, how people get information. And I think it is probably good to see what are the main leaders in this respect. If one looks, for example, Facebook. Facebook have 1.1 billion users. There are other social media like QQ with 816 million. But one issue what I think one has to be very mindful is if you look at social media, it is a very dynamic environment. It is not that you say what I see this year will have the same relevance next year. So it's a very fast changing media, and therefore it is very, very important that you stay tuned and that you really know what kind of platforms coming up and how, in a way, you address your content to fit in these platforms. And it is, what I have not here is, for example, if you look at China, where you see, in a way, how China has developed in this way. And the interesting part is that now you see the combination of social media with really financial banks forms. And that will revolutionize the whole banking industry. I talked to a very savvy person who has launched just the biggest stock market launch IPO in the history. And he told me that he's convinced that the banking system in 5 years in China, he will have a market share of 35%. So the whole dynamics of really digitalization and the combination of connectivity will become even more, in a way, relevant to racing. Looking now, what are the opportunities for racing? First of all, we think racing has to be relevant and access mainstream. Because the mainstream, we have our racing customers who are very much connected to us. But the relevance of us in mainstream news, in mainstream information, I think is definitely something we have to be concerned about. We think, in a way, that enhancing a social media strategy can definitely add value to the value proposition we have. And last not least, I think that it helps to lifting the veil, the mystery, where you can see that racing is not, if people go first time to a race meeting, it's sometimes very difficult for them to understand. And they don't want, in a way, to ask silly questions. So if you have the chance via social media that people, in a way, not embarrassing themselves, that you can inform them, that they can ask questions, that they get answers in a very smart technology way, I think it will definitely lift the veil horse racing has. And what I think is interesting, if you look at how racing media, which are, in a way, at the moment, is a mainstream. If you see the mainstream of our racing information, which is on print, and if one see how the newspaper circulation has dramatically dropped in a lot of jurisdictions, if one looks for North America, the newspaper circulation is dropped by 10%. If you look at Europe, it's 23%. Australia and Oceania is 19.6%. You see a little increase, interesting, in the 2010-2013 in relation to main newspaper circulation in Asia and South America. But the trend there is very clear. People more and more, even the newspapers, they have to find a sustainable model of having newspapers and media-based, internet-based platforms in a way to get their news across. And this is what I personally think is extremely important in relation to racing. Another quick statistic to give an overview is the social media penetration as a percentage of the total population. If one looks, for example, in Australia, you have 73%. The people spend on average 2 hours per day on social media. The percentage of mobile users who use social media apps on their phone is 55%, and 13% of the people use, in a way, location-based services. So we can go, for example, to France, where you have 68% of the population are social media users. If you see, they spend 1 hour 29 on social media. You have 41% using social media apps on their phones, and the percentage of usage of mobile apps with location service is 10%. So that gives you, I hope, a little bit of flavor how, in a way, our daily environment is dominated by the digitalization and by technology, and why I personally think it's a unique opportunity for us to connect for racing with, in a way, the mainstream media and build new bridges for communication. I think it's not only that social media has an enormous footprint, but it's really dominating now more and more the daily activities of a lot of people who are our customers. Access to social media, especially if it comes to video, and one of our, in a way, great advantages, if you look at horse racing, is really the sound, it's the impression horse racing gives, the emotion, and therefore with the digitalization and the higher capacity of networks, we can really use videos in a way to connect to our customers much more than we could do this before. If one looks at different customer segments, especially the younger customer segments, we know that sometimes very difficult in relation to getting airtime on television. If you want to custom-made your programs for a younger segment, in a way it would be very difficult to justify the cost of a classical channel, TV channel. So with YouTube, for example, where you have, in a way, a chance to have a very custom-made, segment-based content for a younger generation, that is, for example, a unique opportunity which helps us from racing to connect to the younger customers. Especially if one looks at YouTube, which is the second largest search engine on the planet, it reaches more US adults aged 18 to 34 than any cable network. So that are, I think, very tailor-made, segment-made opportunities for racing to really, in a way, connect to the customer. The win, for example, the clip of Frankel when he won the Jutland International in 2012 was watched by 400,000 people on YouTube. It shows, in a way, if we are able to produce equine stars, if we then are able to use social media, that gives us a unique chance, in a way, to get our message out. So we think, in a way, that it's really adding a value proposition if we could embrace and find a social media strategy which is relevant, and especially for the 21st consumers we have who spend their recreational time and their pastime in this kind of wide variety of options. We think it is absolutely necessary for racing to capture these platforms. In this respect, what I said, lifting the veil is important, that we can have a chance to do this. And Churchill Downs, for example, they had a 3-minute video episode about the Kentucky Derby, which was viewed by 230,000 viewers. It shows a dimension, what I personally think you have, in a way, as a racing jurisdiction. But what are our challenges? Our challenges is that you really have to understand the development and the landscape of social media. There is an issue regarding resources, and a lot of times your financial officer will ask you, what is ROI, what's your return on investment? And we have to be, in a way, very mindful how we, in a way, address these issues. And I give only a flavor again, understanding the social media landscape, which is huge, and it's developing every day. In relation to resource limitations, one of the issues is it's not money. Because I think if you want to produce relevant content, it is not only about money, it's about creativity. It is about to understand the customer, to speak the language of the customer, and especially if it comes to the younger customer, I think that is definitely something we as racing face issues, and we have to think about how we have people who can connect and help us connect to the younger customer. So the resources is for me more capability than only a financial aspect. And then it comes back how you justify it, your ROI, but I don't want to go too much in this, because in the end, in a way, you have to assess what the lifetime value of your future customer is. And I only can say from our personal experience, if you look at our experience in the Jockey Club, it is not a matter, should I invest or should I not invest? It's a must. Because if you see that the lifestyle, the connectivity of customers is really social media based, and if you are not there as racing, you become irrelevant, and you will not become an option, which is interesting for, in a way, our future potential customers. But this is what I think is enough of my practical introduction. I would, in a way, really think that we have two organizations here where I have to first of all declare an interest. They are strategic partners of the Jockey Club. It's Manchester United and BMW. But moreover, what I think it is relevant, that if you look at a global branch like Manchester United, which you hear probably more competently than for me, one of the most, or if not the most, global recognized sports brand, and how best practices have been developed with Manchester United to connect to the customer and to really be relevant for the customer, to build up the fan base. And if one looks at BMW, who stands for lifestyle connectivity, and it is a leading, definitely, lifestyle automobile company, which I think, again, how you connect to your customer, how you create relevancy, how you differentiate yourself. And that's what I think should be an interesting discussion, which shows us what best practices are. First of all, I would like to introduce David Sternberg, who's Manchester United's head of media, is a Princeton University graduate, spent 11 years with Fox Sports as executive vice president and CEO. He was then Universal Sports chief executive from 2010 and 2013, and his portfolio at Manchester United includes overseeing the club's MUTV channel, websites, mobile, social, and print media. And our second speaker is Wolfgang Breyer, who's head of BMW's head of international advertising, online communication, and entertainment marketing since 2011. He started in the BMW Group as the team lead international market research from 2002, and then he served in several positions in the BMW Group from team lead of product management, strategy of components, head of communication strategy, and head of international advertising last. But without further ado, I would love to introduce, after the introduction, give David the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Winfried. It's a pleasure to be here. We're very proud of our association with the Hong Kong Jockey Club at Manchester United, and I hope that I'm able to share some insights with you and the rest of the delegates today on how we work not only together with partners like you, but more broadly speaking in the social media space.
I've never been to Old Trafford. It's on my bucket list. It's going to be a day that I will never forget.
This is a picture of Wayne Rooney that I did, and I made this too. It's made with strips of paper.
That's not even my name. Luis.
This is my identity. When I put on my shirt, it's like I've put on an armor.
I'm from Namibia. I've been in United for 12 years.
It's definitely a dream to go to Old Trafford.
To just watch one game at Old Trafford, one game, and I'll be satisfied.
It's the home of Manchester United, the history, all the players, but it's like 9,000 kilometers.
To be part of the team at the stadium, live watching it.
I'm very excited to be in the front row team. I feel over the moon. I didn't expect this to happen.
Being in the stadium with the other fans and being together and the passion and the craziness, the energy, it's going to be amazing.
Be one of those chosen to represent the others all over the world and be there in the front row.
Please welcome fans from around the world joining us live at Old Trafford via Google Plus.
So that's a quick overview on video of one of the most unique executions that we've done in the social media space at the club. It was called Manchester United Front Row with Google+, and it was truly a groundbreaking initiative that I'll talk a little bit more about later, but hopefully gives you some idea of the power that our brand has to reach fans around the world through social networks. I'm going to start off with a quick overview of the club for those of you who might not know who we are, although I can't imagine that there would be too many. I'll talk a little bit about what our strategic objectives are in the social media space, what our evolution in social media has been over the last few years. I'll then look at the impact of some of the things that we've done in the social space, benchmarking that against other properties around the world. We'll look at a couple of case studies, including a little bit more on the Front Row initiative that I just showed you. And then I'll share some insights and concluding thoughts. Manchester United is, by any measure, the biggest and most successful football club in England and perhaps the world. We've won the English Premier League championship 13 times, the English League title a total of 20 times. We've won the FA Cup 11 times and the European Championship 3 times. And in the club's 135-year history, there's been one constant, which is the emphasis on youth and developing players within our academy, bringing them along, and then helping them gain stardom on the biggest stage in world club football. And I think that's an important motif to keep in mind as we look at the marketing and digital media strategy of the club, because it goes very nicely hand in hand with the statistics that Winfried just shared with you, which is the massive consumption of digital and social media by youth around the world. We are the most supported club in the world. We have 650 million fans and followers around the globe. Over half of that number are in Asia, and this is the result of a survey that was commissioned by Kantar, a worldwide market research company, 2 years ago. And I think it shows, as you can see on this map, the massive reach that we have and the popularity of our brand in every corner of the globe. As Winfried mentioned in his introduction, I'm the head of the club media business, and my remit is all of the Manchester United owned and operated media platforms. The mission of those media businesses is to serve as the official and preferred source of news, information, and entertainment for United fans around the world, across every conceivable media platform and through whatever means and devices they choose to consume it. Some of the key activities that my group is involved in include broadcasting with the MUTV 24/7 Club TV channel, our digital and website operations, including the 6 foreign language versions of our website that we operate, mobile products, including apps and value-added services that we provide to mobile network operator partners around the world, social media, print media, including monthly magazines and match day programs, content licensing, and other commercial media activities. We have a staff of 90 people based in Manchester, and we have editorial partners in key markets around the world who help us to generate localized content. The 5 strategic objectives that we have specifically in the social media space are content distribution, fan engagement, sponsor integration, database expansion, and product sales. And for us to move forward with the launch of a Man United branded channel on any social media platform, it has to help us to achieve those 5 objectives. And I'll show you in a moment some of the ways in which our activities do that. The evolution of Man United's social media presence has been pretty rapid. We were not necessarily the first football club to the party in terms of launching social media accounts and channels. Our Facebook account was launched back in July of 2010, but then it was another 3 years before we launched official accounts on Twitter and on Sina Weibo, which is the biggest microblogging platform in China, along with Tencent Weibo. Subsequently, in 2013, we launched official accounts on Google+ and Instagram. We launched localized language versions of our Twitter feed in Japanese, Arabic, Malay, Spanish, and Indonesian. And then earlier this year, we launched on Tencent Weibo, Line, which is a mobile messaging platform based in Japan, but with close to 300 million users all around the world. And most recently, we have reached agreement to launch official channels later this month on WeChat, which is the biggest mobile messaging platform in China, owned by the Tencent Group, and on Pinterest, which is a design and visual image discovery platform based in the US, but with increasing reach around the world. So if we look at the impact of the launches and the activity that we've conducted on all of these channels, we see a very rapid growth in our social footprint. Total number of social connections on all of our channels in mid-June of this year were close to 70 million, which represented a 100% increase over the prior year, driven largely by our launches on Twitter, Google+, Instagram, and the 2 Weibo platforms in China. The cornerstone of that from a statistical standpoint is our presence on Facebook. We have 59 million fans globally on Facebook, and we continue to be the fastest growing English football club on that platform, as well as many of the others. Even though we weren't necessarily first out of the gate to launch on Twitter, we got to the 1 million follower mark in only 71 days during the summer of 2013. And with Instagram, we were able to become the #1 Premier League club in only 22 days. And on the 2 Weibo platforms, Tencent Weibo and Sina Weibo, we are the #1 football club. More important than just raw follower numbers is the level of engagement that we see with the content that we publish on our social channels. Taking Facebook, for example, the most widely referenced measure of engagement for a social account on Facebook is the number of people that are talking about that, so making some reference to it either in a share, a like, or a comment on a weekly basis. And during the past 12 months from August of 2013 to July of 2014, we had 1.3 million people on average talking about our Facebook presence every week, and that was ahead of every other football club in the world, including Real Madrid and FC Barcelona, who actually have more followers overall than we do. On Twitter as well, the number of mentions of our @ManUnited handle far exceed those for any other global football clubs. Total handle mentions during the month of July of this year were 13.7 million for Man United, far ahead of Arsenal, which was the second place club. What's the key to our success in not only gaining followers, but keeping them engaged? I think it really is about the content fundamentally. And where our efforts are very much focused is in ensuring that we offer our fans exclusive material on our social channels that they can't see or get anywhere else. So, for example, we'll have exclusive video of major events that are happening at the club before anybody else has it. Up at the top left, you see a picture of Juan Mata, who is one of our top signings from Chelsea back in January of this year. He arrived at our training ground via helicopter, and we were the only media outlet by virtue of being the club's internal media organ to have live footage of that, and we put it right up on our Facebook and Twitter feeds as soon as we captured it. We also commission original artwork from our in-house design resources, paying homage not only to great players of the past, such as that second image at the top left of George Best, but also our most recent marquee signing, Angel Di Maria. There are also special creative executions around match day, around major milestones in the club's history, such as the annual anniversary of the Munich air disaster in 1958. And again, as much behind-the-scenes content as we can possibly secure, because we know that that's what our fans are looking for, and there's no place else that they can go on these platforms or on the web to get it. I showed you the video earlier about the MU Front Row initiative that we had with Google Plus earlier this year. We picked 20 fans from around the world to have their images superimposed live during our match against Liverpool on the digital advertising boards at Old Trafford. This was following a contest that was run exclusively through the Google Plus social platform, and to which there were close to 20,000 entries around the world. This helped us not only to reach out to fans in every corner of the globe and make them feel like they were a part of this big match for the club, but also to grow our presence on the Google Plus platform. We were already the fastest growing sports account on that channel, but this more than doubled our follower growth in the month that followed this initiative last March. We also got a lot of PR coverage of it, with over 200 articles being written about this stunt. And for us, that was important to help position the club not only to fans, but also to our business partners, such as our sponsors, as innovators in the digital and social media space. A second case study that I want to call your attention to is the work that we've done, again, with our partners to help promote their brands in connection with ours. We have a new shirt sponsor this season, Chevrolet, and as part of the unveiling of the new shirt in July of this year, we ran a contest to give away signed shirts with the new logo and the new look on our Facebook page, and we also ran an exclusive video unveiling the shirt on the day of its announcement. And as you can see on the bar graph on the right, which is helpfully translated into French, that during that first month after the launch of the new shirt and this contest in early July, Chevrolet FC, the Chevy soccer-oriented Facebook page, quadrupled its reach on Facebook and is actually now, with 520,000 followers, the 14th biggest Premier League club on Facebook, if you will. So that was a very positive result for our new shirt sponsor, and also helped, again, to raise interest among our fans in the new shirt and the new season. Finally, I mentioned that a key objective of our strategy is to drive sales of other products. And one of the areas where we've tested this is with our Man United Club mobile app. We've found that promoting the app and allowing for direct downloads from our Facebook and Twitter accounts has been hugely successful. It's generated over half of the total downloads for that app since we introduced it in February of this year. And alongside that promotion on our own platforms, we've also engaged in some very targeted paid promotion of the app on both Facebook and Twitter, and we found that that too can be a very effective means of getting our products in front of a much wider audience and helping to raise the overall conversion rate. So what are the insights that we've gained from these various activities and executions? Well, I've listed them here, but just to run through them quickly. Number one, the content has to be likable, it has to be shareable, and it has to be actionable, so as to drive maximum engagement with fans. We want fans not only to look at what we're putting out there, whether it's video, artwork, photography, or text, but we want them to share that with their friends and increase the virality of the material. Secondly, we've learned that it's very important to launch early in the life cycle of these platforms. We were relatively early to launch an official account on Facebook, and we've seen that with the growth that's taken us to close to 60 million followers today. Twitter, we waited 2.5 years, and we're still some way behind the biggest football clubs, FC Barcelona and Real Madrid. We've tried to rectify that by engaging much more quickly with some of these newer platforms, particularly the mobile messaging apps that I was talking about, like WeChat and Line. Third, we can help ourselves by engaging directly with other key constituencies who have a presence on social media, not just our partners, but in this case, very often it's our own players. Wayne Rooney, for example, just reached 10 million Twitter followers yesterday. So we do as much cross-promotion with him and his account as we can. We do the same with big Man United fans who have a strong global presence on Twitter and Facebook, such as Usain Bolt. Fourth insight, the platform analytics, the data on how people interact with social media content are still very much in their infancy, particularly once you get beyond Facebook. So while absolutely knowing what our ROI is, particularly on the investment that we're making in producing content, is important, there's a limit to what we're able to measure and quantify right now. Twitter and the Chinese Weibo platforms are in the process of upgrading their back-end analytics, but the data there on users and identifying who they are and what they do is still relatively scant. Fifth, engagement metrics really drive our publishing agenda, so we are always studying the results of each campaign, each piece of content we put up to see how successful it was at driving engagement. And if we know that something has a history of being very popular, like celebrating a holiday in one of the key territories for our fans around the world, or commemorating a player's birthday, then that's where we're going to devote our resources. And finally, very important, is to localize the content wherever possible to drive the highest levels of engagement and virality. We not only have the 5 full-time Twitter accounts in foreign languages, but on Facebook we're publishing 3 posts per week minimum in a total of 20 languages. And those are localized, targeted posts that our editorial partners in different parts of the world are putting together that bring the activities of the club, the players, and the concerns of the fans down to a local level. So in conclusion, what are some of the takeaways that I think are important for all of you as fellow operators in the sports and entertainment industry? I think one is launch early on emerging platforms. Make sure you know where your fans are going and where they're spending their time. And the earlier you get in, the more marketing support you're likely to get from those platforms in terms of promoting to your site and steering their users to your channel. Second, make sure that you involve your commercial partners, your sponsors, and advertisers in your social media efforts. It's not only a valuable asset for them, but it can also open your brand up to their audiences who may or may not be familiar with what you're doing. Third, calls to action within social media can be very effective at driving our business objectives. I talked about downloads for our mobile app, but the same applies for subscriptions to our MUTV channel, sales of our monthly print magazine, or indeed the sale of season tickets and hospitality packages at Old Trafford. Fourth, it's very important to have a full integration of your social media presence with your website. We have a social hub on the manunited.com website that brings together all of our social feeds and is a very useful place for fans who are on the website to go to see what is new and interesting on our Twitter feed, Facebook, or what have you. Fifth, short-form video content and exclusive digital assets are massively important, not only to driving engagement, but also to capturing user data. Very often, especially when we have a new signing, as we did with Di Maria back in August, we'll put that exclusive video behind a registration wall on Facebook. So if you click on our Facebook site, you have to fill in your email and other personal details in order to see that video. And that helps us to build our CRM database, which is one of the top commercial priorities of the club. And finally, if you can partner together with platforms, as we did with Google Plus on Front Row, to create a unique initiative that has not been tried before, not only do you get significant cooperation from them, but it really can help mark you out, as I said earlier, as an innovator and a leader in this space. And people notice that, whether it's fans, commercial partners, or indeed your competitors, and it can give you a real significant edge. Thank you very much for your attention.
Wolfgang?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me. As I understood, I'm the last point on the agenda. Oh, and the bad news is half of it at the beginning is already known. But the good news is social media is anyway a temporary thing. And let me elaborate on this a little bit more in detail. Looking at this picture, I think a lot of us in the room remember the time when having a mobile phone was a status symbol, and having a telephone conversation on a bus station, that was kind of a very important person, obviously. Nowadays, you're the weirdo if you're not on the phone. So two things have changed. First of all, everyone has one. And the second is, people stop using it as a telephone. They use it as a source of information, especially young people. They don't like to have conversations with their phones. They're just texting and doing something on social media channels. The question is this really new? This is what I meant with it's an old story. Not really. People were always looking for information, always looking for news. So we call this nowadays, and I'm sure this half a century back, they didn't know that this is micro-boredom, what they are facing in this situation. But what is new in this situation is they are nowadays not only consuming, they are sharing. And this is a funny one. I think a lot of you know this already. This is the election of the Pope 2005. And this is the same thing 2013. And why do I say this or show this? Well, people are spreading what they get here as a result, first of all. But it makes perfectly clear that social media is nothing about young people, fancy people, about a certain special community. It is in broad society. So even the Pope has its own Twitter account. So it was Benedict, if I remember correctly, the pontifex that started it, right? So there's a Twitter account from the Pope, an official one. Then there's completely new ways of doing things, and that is, of course, having a strong impact on our daily life as well as on business. Like, for instance, TripAdvisor. So everyone knows it. If you go somewhere, you don't know where's a good restaurant, you check on TripAdvisor. And if you ever had the experience to go to this fabulous restaurant, not realizing that all those great comments are for a restaurant which is directly in front of a campground. And you are there and you realize, oh, that's fabulous from a campground user perspective, but not maybe really. Then this is a pretty new experience. And last but not least, it's speed. That's one aspect we have to be aware of. It is extremely fast. When the bomb went up at the Boston Marathon, it was a Twitter message after seconds. So before any other media was able to come up with this message, it was on Twitter already. So it's extremely fast. And all this together, of course, has chances and risks. I mean, suddenly, if you get in conflict with a customer, then this is not something between you and your customer. This is something between you and your customer and millions of other people, which is maybe in this situation not what you want to have. So business, what is the impact on business? There's examples like, for instance, Best Buy. They changed their customer support to more or less purely online. I think they do 90% of their customer support meanwhile online. Or car sharing, something which becomes a real story, an interesting story, by having a broad platform where you have the information where to get a car, where to get a lift. Or last but not least, completely new Airbnb. And don't feel safe just because you're maybe the Mandarin Oriental, for instance. Because on Airbnb you get flats which are significantly higher priced than what you would pay at the Mandarin Oriental in a city. So this is really business, this is really money, this is seriously what's going to happen there. But what I said, well, it's only a temporary thing. And this is, if you check out the history of social media, I mean, going back to 2005, there was no iPhone. More than half of the people here in this room have an iPhone, I have the impression. There was no one a few years ago. There was no YouTube, there was no Twitter, and Facebook was for a small crowd of students that exchanged the best tips for party nights or whatsoever. Nowadays, half of the mobile phones are smartphones. They have internet capabilities. We have 3 billion videos per day. So we are in a time where it's absolutely impossible to watch it all. So I think it's 60 hours per second that they upload on YouTube, if I remember the figure correctly. And we have 4 million tweets per day on Twitter. And all the social media stuff loves those huge figures. It's interesting. It's the least thing social media it's all about. So social media is about relation, about talking to people, getting into a relation to a person. This is what social media is. But we always love to use those big numbers. I do this as well because it sounds great. But it's not the essence of social media. And what's going to happen at the same time period from now? What's in 2020? Well, always tough to do forecasts, especially about the future. And so nobody really knows, but if it goes a little bit on in the direction as it does currently, then social media is just a new normal. I'm sure that we won't have the term social media any longer. No one will talk about social media. It's online, and this is, of course, social media. What else? So maybe there will be no email anymore because you're always in a direct response exchange with your partners and with your community. And so this is something which is just normal. And it is something which, from a company point of view, is definitely not only a marketing and communication issue, it's an issue for the whole organization. So it's been used at BMW for market research, human resources. It's also for engineering. You get new ideas for new products and innovations and so on and so forth. So it is something which is done in the whole organization, which also is a challenge for huge organizations because you have to be careful because suddenly everyone starts to communicate and you have to establish very clear rules how to talk to customers, what to tell customers and what not. I mean, if you start talking about products that will come to the market in 10 years from now, it's maybe not the best idea to bring your competition on the same level of knowledge as your innovation managers in your engineering department. What I would like to talk about is what we do with social media and marketing. That's my business. So Simply said, there's 4 columns of our social media strategy: be present, be relevant, boost joy, and drive sales. What does this mean? Let me go through that. Be present. It's more or less the old quote, fish where the fish are. So know where your customers are, know where your customers expect you to be, and be present. So we focus on, I will skip all those figures, we focus on those channels you see here. So Facebook, we are the most successful automotive brand on Facebook, and so on and so forth. We are on YouTube, Google+, Instagram, and Twitter. The important thing is, if you go there, stay there. Be present, be sustainable, be reactive. So the biggest mistake you can do is, oh, there's a new channel. I go there, I do some tweets, I do some posts, I do some whatsoever it's called on this particular channel, and then I'm gone again. The important thing is you decide to go to a certain channel, and then you stay there. And then you are a responsive partner for the community. That's the most important thing. One of the most important things. The other most important thing is you are relevant. So you come up with stories that is relevant for your customers. And this can be a broad range. So people that are interested in BMW, they love those emotional stories we are doing. They also are interested in just product information. How does this connected drive thing work? What do I get in terms of engines for this particular model, and so on and so forth. So we have a broad range of very informational content and also very emotional content. And emotional content, there's an internal point of view, of course. So what we believe is appropriate for BMW, this is not necessarily what all of our customers share in the same way. So whether you like those examples or not, this is something of which we would say, well, it's from fans, it's from people that are enthusiasts, that are involved, and we appreciate that they upload something, we accept this, but we would say it's not necessarily the way we would like to present our brand. So we don't stop it, we don't block it, but we definitely don't stage it. That's the important thing here. What we do on the other hand, and that's what I mean with be responsive, we had this situation, for instance, in the UK where Scott Chenaway, it's a guy who has 20,000 followers on Twitter, he was asking the community, hey, I want to go for a ski trip on the weekend, what kind of car should I use? And there was a local dealer responding to him and told him, well, come over, I give you a car, do a test drive and make your ski weekend. And you sell something, you make a customer for a day, or you solve a problem, you make a customer for life. And this guy went to a ski weekend, he came back, he was twittering, he was, of course, extremely excited, and it was a huge, more or less for free impact for a broad community when he was promoting one of our products. So this is something that does not really cost you money. In a way, if you're not hiring an agency to do something like this, but it costs you involvement and it costs you time. And this is something one has to be aware of. Social media is about relationships, and relationships take time, they cost time, as always. So define a dedicated team that is really responsive, that talks to people, and that reacts to their requirements, proposals, maybe complaints. The important thing is they get feedback in a very short notice. Boost joy. The brand of BMW, or the core of the BMW brand, is joy. This is what we want to communicate in all our activities. And so we do two things. First of all, we invite people to share their content, and the best content we see online, we take and we stage on our official pages. You have to be aware that most of the content, if you have a well-known brand, and BMW is a well-known brand, we call it a love brand, and so you can say that maybe 80% of all the BMW content online is not from BMW. It is from customers, from fans, from people that are excited about the brand, are interested about the brand, and they put content online. And the content we think is the most professional one, the most brand adequate one is the one that we stage. And people love it. They feel honored by the fact that they are staged on an official BMW site. And so the best pieces we take and we stage them. And furthermore, we produce exclusive social media content. The important thing is regular traditional advertising is not working on social media. People don't like it. You get very high rejection rates even if you go for those pre-roll ads at YouTube. People do not really like it. They have far less a problem on TV because they are used to it. Oh, there's my advertising break so I can go for a beer. So this is something you're used to. This is what people do. But if they are online, then they are in, as we say, a lean forward mode. So they want to see something. They are actively searching for something. And if they have found it, and then they push the play button, and suddenly there is this weird kind of advertising stuff, they hate it. So this is something that can work if it's well done. So I wouldn't say stop it, but be very careful with this one. And the other thing is, just pure advertising is not what relations are about. Relations are not about advertising. Relations are about communication. And so the stuff one is producing successfully for social media should differ from what is done for TV, for instance. And if it should really become successful, then the most professional way is to embed it in a whole event. So we did something in the summer with the new BMW 2 Series. And this was what we call the drift mob. You know, flash mob is this when people come together and do something weird. So we thought, well, we are BMW, why not doing a drift mob? And I show you in a second what we mean with that. And for this, we hired the top stunt drivers of this planet. So the guys you see here, they are all from the Fast and the Furious team. We had bloggers there. We had people with a huge community. We put them into the cars. They were allowed to drive during the stunt with the cars. So they didn't drive, but they were driven in the backseat and stuff like that. So we involved people up front so that we generated a huge, huge media buzz before we even put this activity online. And the interesting thing is, by involving people, by getting people on board, we had situations like there were feedbacks like, that's not true, I don't believe, that's faster than it was, I can see it from the camera, la la la, they speed it up, so that's not authentic. And then the community started like, hey, wait a second, here I have it on my smartphone, I was there, this is correct, it was exactly as you see it there. So there is no need to interact as a company. You just sit there and the community has suddenly a self-correcting momentum. And not to be the only one without a film, I would now like to share with you the outcome of what we call the epic drift mob with the M235i. Thank you. Thank you. Authenticity, very important word as well in this context. And to say this very clearly, it was of course no drift mob in terms of there were some crazy crowds coming together and endangering the whole city. So that was in a closed area, but the driving was real. So there is no fake. This is a real driving on a closed area with professional drivers, so don't try this at home and so on. Or do try it on one of our training courses, it's really fun. Last but not least, we are not Paramount, we are not Warner Brothers, so it's not about entertainment, it's about business. So one objective, of course, to say this very frankly, is to drive sales. Now, driving sales as a car company online does not mean you sell cars online. This is not the way it works. It's more like a brand work. So our intention with our social media activities is to move customers in the sales process one step forward. So reaching new target groups, making them to fans, or fans to prospects, or prospects to customers by making contact to the dealership, letting them do a configuration online and stuff like this, or which is of course the end of the story or the ultimate goal, make customers to brand advocates, like for instance this guy, it's an Arabian guy, I can't remember the country he came from, sorry. He came to the BMW Welt and asked his girlfriend to marry him. And what should she say? Of course, he said yes. So, last but not least, a few pillars of our strategy might not be one-to-one suitable for any other target, but what we follow is be present, be relevant, boost joy, and drive sales. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think it probably gave you, at the end of the day, a little overview of what in the sporting world and in the business world happened. And I was wondering, in a way, if you have any questions from the audience before I maybe fire a question. Okay, Howard, and then Andrew. Yeah. Yeah. Howard. Yeah, we need a micro. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Is that better?
Oui.
Yeah. Howard Wright from a more traditional media and a follower of a football club with a history a lot leaner than Manchester United. But my question is to David Sternberg. How do you manage a successful social media strategy during a downturn in the first team's performances on the pitch?
That's a great and very timely question. Although we did win yesterday, yeah. Thankfully. Would have been a lot harder to get up here. But as many of you may know, the last season plus have been a challenging period for Man United following the retirement of Sir Alex Ferguson. And there has been a lot of consternation, I guess you could say, among our fans around the world. And our social media platforms are one of the places where they go to voice their frustration over the team's performance. And it's important for us to respect that. And just as Wolfgang was saying about BMW, we don't censor that. We don't edit it. We let that conversation amongst our fans around the world play itself out. And you know the adage in public relations that all news is good news? Well, in a way, all engagement is good engagement. People who are really upset about how the team is playing are in some ways even more engaged than people who are somewhat complacent and satisfied with its performance. So in terms of our metrics, we haven't seen a downturn in terms of how many people follow our social sites and how many people engage with them. It does mean that it's more challenging for us to strike the right tone. Again, keeping with the theme of authenticity. You can't sugarcoat the reality, but by the same token, we're looking at it more holistically, I guess, and as long as our content and what we're putting out there engages fans, and as long as we're giving them a forum to communicate with each other and back to us, then we're doing our job.
Thank you. Andrew?
Yes. And this is a question for Mr. Sternberg and for Mr. Breyer, and then I'd like to turn that question to you, Winfried, as a racing executive. With relation to a relatively new social media platform, Snapchat, and briefly for those who may not know, Snapchat allows people to share expiring photos and short videos among select friends or all of their friends as a story. Recent events like the FIFA World Cup final, the IFHA Music Festival, have worked with Snapchat to communicate their event in real time. And how your groups are beginning to look at incorporating that platform. And Winfried, how might racing adopt this event sharing type app? Admittedly, I was sharing pictures and videos with my friends back in the United States yesterday of the Arc, because obviously not everyone could be there. So I think it has some real world applications.
Wolfgang first.
Is this on? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Well, we actually do screen all new channels. So whenever there is a new platform, we have it on screen, and we try to evaluate the potential. So what we do is we put it on the list, we claim our territory. So for instance, we had an issue with Twitter where we were a bit late. Suddenly the BMW account was gone already. So that becomes a big action to get this back then. So we claim the territory, but we do not immediately involve. Exactly for the reason I said before, if you jump on every horse, then suddenly you become fragmented. You can't handle 20 different platforms. So you need to prioritize, you need to focus on the platforms that have the biggest potential for you, and then be there, stay there, and be sustainable on this platform. So that's why we do not have the ambition to be the first there. That's no value. We have the ambition to decide in a good management manner to go there if it's really with potential, and then stay there and be sustainable. That's our approach in this.
Yeah, at United, we've looked at Snapchat as well. We have not proceeded to do anything official there, but it's something that we're studying. For us, it's going to be a question not only of resource allocation, similar to Wolfgang, but also understanding how we can use that platform to disseminate content and achieve some of the business objectives that we have for social media. So that all is part of the evaluation that we're doing. But having said that, there's no question that that's where a lot of people are, particularly younger users. It has a lot of appeal, and I can say this as the parent of 2 teenagers, in basically getting rid of the evidence before dad can pick up your phone, log on and see what you've been doing. So we're trying to figure out from the standpoint of our brand how we can more fully engage with our fans on that type of channel.
I think I try to answer briefly. If not, I get a yellow card or a red card from our chairman. We, for example, the Jockey Club, look really how we can fit the social media strategy in our business strategy. Because there are a lot of applications out, and you have to be very clear what is your, from the branding perspective, and how you want to connect and have a relevance in the customer segment you're aiming for. If it comes to the specific application like Snapshot, we have at the moment discussion, because especially when we have the Wednesday night, the beer garden, where you have especially specific events when we see like the International Jockeys Championship, etc., so that we considering launching this application during this event. But it comes back in a way, you have to have a critical mass, and you have to link this back to your business objective. So we know in a way a lot of people do it anyway, they go there. But for me, how you link it back in a way, and how you as a brand and how you get in the end for CRM programs gets a direct contact to your customer. I think it's a very important strategic step, because there are so many, in a way, from the focus, there are so many potential applications. But if you cannot sustain it, if you not have the permanent present, if you don't have relevant content, then I think it becomes an issue. It's a one-time peak, but it's not sustainable. Last question, Andrew.
Thank you, Winfried. What I'm interested in knowing more about is the capability question. And just using the subject that was just touched on, Snapchat, you both said that part of it is to claim the territory and then to carry out the evaluation. How much of it is that done internally, and how much would you use external agencies to help you with, say, for example, carrying out the evaluation?
Our entire social media effort is in-house. We do the strategic evaluation of each platform internally, and the execution of our presence on those platforms, if we decide to launch, is also handled internally. We have a dedicated team of 5 employees that work on social media within the club. They're hugely stretched, and more so every day as the platforms grow and in the engagement levels and the expectations of our fans for direct engagement with the club grow. But for us, it's very important, as with all of our other media activities, to retain control of the positioning of our brand and the messaging to our fan base.
With BMW, it is in most of the cases strategy, in-house, execution, external. So we cooperate with agencies, but one has to say, or one has to know, that the cooperation with our agencies is very, very tight. So it's not that we give projects away and don't care what's going on there. We have a very tight agency-customer relation, but basically we run the strategy in-house, and all the operative stuff is handled by an agency.
Thank you very much, and please give a warm hand to our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you very much for these 2 excellent sessions. So we'll go quicker than usually for the closing remarks. I have just a few slides for you to remind you of important things that were discussed today. So I always want to insist on the importance of horse welfare. We had several issues during the year which show how important it is. We show that we must identify best practice approach, which is the one that IFHA has always been implementing, that we must develop global standards, and that we must promote education and research initiatives. My personal conviction is that no horse welfare policy will succeed without taking into account public perception. The new International Horse Sports Confederation, which we have created between IFHA and FEI, must be proactive on all sensitive issues, and we must liaise with OIE to facilitate the international movement of horses. The second slide I want to show you is the one concerning anti-doping and controlled use of medication. As I said earlier, the implementation of ISL and the publication of detection times have been changing the approach to anti-doping policy, to anti-doping control, and to the use of therapeutic substances. The next step will be the one that was very clearly presented to you by Dr. Bonner, with the implementation of the certification of racing laboratories in order to implement reference labs around the world in all continents to test top international race and to guarantee a level playing field. We must also progressively introduce everywhere around the world out-of-competition testing in every country. I know it's expensive, but I think it is very important. We don't want to have horses trained on medication, and as was clearly said by Denny Phipps, by an American representative, horses should compete only when they are free from the influence of medication. One other point which we have discussed today is the quality control of graded races. The Longines World Best Racehorse Rankings have become, I think, the worldwide communication tool to recognize the quality of horses and racers internationally. And we were very pleased to hear today that 12 racers from Uruguay will be promoted to Part 1 next year. And I want to congratulate our South American friends for all the work they have been doing to review their grading following these rankings. And I think that these rankings, as I said earlier, must be used as much as we can to promote the best racehorse and best racers. And we will have a new one that will be implemented this year and has been announced a few days ago, which is that we have created a new Longines World Best Jockey Award, which will also help us to promote our athletes, which are the champion jockeys. One important point has been the development of regional conferences. They have become an absolute necessity to prepare and to complete the work of IFHA. Winfried for IRF, Brian for EMHF, and Jim for the new Pan American Conference that will start next year, have a very important task to identify the main issues arising in their regions and to help us to initiate the necessary actions at worldwide level. I think it will be a very important part of the IFHA future strategy and of the organizing of international conference. And the good news are that the Longines Partnership, which we signed in 2013, guarantees the finances of IFHA until 2018. And that I want just to summarize, to finish, our main objective for the next 4 years, which are the implementation of best practice and global standards for proactive horse welfare policy, and our partnership, new partnership with FEI, the agreement with OIE to facilitate the international movement of horses with an annual review to be sure that we are spending the money the way we want, as Andrew explained to us, the new program of certification of racing labs, quality control of graded racers, the increased role of regional conferences, and the development of our international and external communication policy to promote our actions. And just to finish, I want to thank all the speakers and moderators for their excellent work, my 3 vice chairmen, all EXCO members who are sitting there, and all our committee chairmen, because behind this conference there is a lot of work done by administrators in each of the committees. To thank all the IFHA team, Dominique, Andrews, both Andrews, Roland, Martin, and all the regional technical advisors, all the France Gallo team for their help and hospitality. Bertrand was with us this morning, at the beginning of the afternoon. Thierry Delegue, the new chief executive. Jean-Christophe Giletta, who's done a fantastic work for the communication over the weekend. And Agnès and Guillaume Van Veen. Saturn Production, the technical operators. And last but not least, all the interpreters. And to finish, we will show you the film of the Ark. We had a good result on course for the entries of the people, for the attendance. We had 51,208 people attending on Sunday, which is an increase of nearly 30%. And we had 11,000, nearly 10,500 on Saturday, which was up about 20%. Unfortunately, the betting trend for the last month has been was not very good and was down over 10%. And for the weekend. We've been down 13%. We had Kippur, we also had the Eid, we had two religious feasts, and the trend for the moment is not good. The people have been paying the last part of their tax in September, and it has not helped our figures. But on the attendance, it was a success, and as a race, as Jean-Christophe would say, it was monumental. And just watch the second victory of Trev, which is only the second time in history that filly wins the Arc twice, and the first time she won at 3 and 4 because Corrida won at 4 and 5.
Triomphe parce qu'il va falloir sortir de l'ordinaire pour gagner.
Et c'est sous les ovations du public qu'il s'élance pour cette édition 2014 du Qatar Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe, avec un excellent départ pour le numéro 2, Ruler of the World. Bien parti également le numéro 3, Al-Kazim, ainsi que Montviron qui vient à l'extérieur. L'Allemand Ivanov galopant également en dehors avec le numéro 14, Kingston Hill. Spirit Jim est pour l'instant au centre avec le numéro 17, Dolnia, ainsi que le numéro 20, Tapestry. Pour l'instant, les Japonais sont à l'arrière-garde, notamment Just Away, mais également Arctar qui est en avant-dernière position. Et le délicat Goldship qui est en dernière place.
Et c'est le leader, le numéro 12, Montviron, qui a l'avantage avec Kingston Hill qui vient en deuxième position. Ruler of the World qui est troisième côté corde. Avenir certain qui est invaincu au départ de cet arc, qui est pour le moment 4-5e côté corde. Tagruda venant ensuite, la tenante du titre, Trèves, galope côté corde un petit peu plus loin avec Al-Kazim à son extérieur. L'Allemand Ivanoé, le numéro 4, galope pour le moment à flanc de peloton. Dolny est au milieu du paquet avec le numéro 20, Tapestry. Spirit Jim est un petit peu plus loin. Et les Japonais à l'arrière-garde, Artstar et Goldship.
Et toujours Montviron, le numéro 12, qui mène devant Kingston Hill qui est dans son dos. Roller of the World, Frankie Lettori qui est troisième avec Avenir Certain qui se faufile à l'intérieur de Tagruda. Ivanov galopant en dehors, Flincher qui n'est pas loin avec Trèves qui est côté corde. Tapestry, le numéro vient encore avec Dolnia ainsi que Spirit Jim avec dans son sillage toujours la délicate Chiquita. On retrouve également Ecto qui vient encore avec Artar, Siljan Saga, Freeport Clubs qui est à l'arrière-garde avec également Goldship qui est toujours en dernière position.
Bientôt la fosse et une droite, Montviron qui a toujours l'avantage. Kingston Hill qui est deuxième, Avenir Certain galope en troisième position avec à son extérieur Ruler of the World. Trèves est tout près, 5-6e plutôt à l'intérieur. Flintshire venant ensuite, Ivanoé tente de progresser tout à l'extérieur avec Spirit Jim, Ecto un petit peu brillant. Et dans le dernier tiers du peloton, Just Away à l'arrière avec Artstar. Et puis Goldship maintenant le cheval gris qui tente de progresser tout à l'extérieur.
Contré d'ailleurs par Chiquita alors qu'ils entrent bientôt dans la dernière ligne droite. Montviron qui a l'avantage avec Kingston Hill qui est à son extérieur. Ruler of the World qui est troisième. Trèves qui est maintenant côté code avec Avenir Certain, accompagné par Prince Gibraltar également qui refait du terrain. Dolnia également qui tente de réagir. Trèves de plus en plus fort à la corde avec Avenir Certain qui vient à son extérieur. Kingston Hill qui est en troisième position. Tagruda qui est lancé en dehors. Ruler of the World également qui tente de se rapprocher. Trèves de plus en plus fort à l'intérieur avec Tagruda à l'extérieur. Fincher également qui refait du terrain. Trèves qui a pris le meilleur maintenant. Trèves qui va s'envoler vers la victoire. Trèves qui va faire l'incroyable doublé dans l'Arc de Triomphe. La deuxième place pour Fincher. La troisième peut-être pour Tagruda avec Dolnia.
Thank you, and see you tonight at the Jockey Club.